Hey, what's up? It's Nickole Brewster, also known as Coco. Thank you for tapping into the Elevate Him podcast, where we have tons of topics on how to support our men.
Yeah, and with that, you have, again, with the social media and the things that are available to kids, it has literally made them lazy. Yes. And I say that lightly because I know people are sensitive, but I'm just saying, I know that's like an awful word. It's like a cuss word. I'm not lazy, you know, and but I'm just saying, like, where are you going to put and invest your time? Where are you going to put and invest your growth? What do you want out of life? Right? I think those conversations have to be had to stimulate them, to getting them to think about that. Because here's what I always tell my kids. The world does not give a shit about you.
That's right.
It don't. It keeps spinning whether you're here or not,
right.
Whether I'm here or not. It doesn't matter. So you got to take responsibility and you got to figure it out because no one's just going to give you anything.
Right.
And if they do, you might want to make sure it's, you know, legit. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of counterfeits, but I'm just saying, like, how do we get the kids to recognize the value of what they need? Because right now they need TikTok, they need their cell phones, they need the latest this, the latest that.
Right.
It's not about getting into learning how to, you know, budget a checkbook or, you know, balance out money or any like investments or any of that stuff. And my kids are both, you know, two of them are working, two of them are going to school. But we have these conversations because they get frustrated too, that because of so many cuts and, you know, things that aren't funded anymore. Like, remember back in the day, you could go to like music class. Yeah. You can go to art class. Yeah. Like, that's no longer. And so there's nothing to keeping their hobbies. Yeah, there's nothing really there to stimulate the hobbies. And so even when they talk about like economics, they don't really give you life lessons. They kind of just work over a couple things, books closed, you know. So when they get out here, and a lot of parents will be like, oh, you're 18, you're out the house. You're an adult.
Yeah.
You are not an adult.
That is correct.
You're not even able to vouch for yourself with any mental capacity of right and wrong right now because you're still doing dumb shit.
So the young and the old need to get together.
How does that mesh? How do we bridge that? Because these kids aren't going to really want to listen because everything else is influencing them. But the parents also, like we said, need to be accountable. But if we get that going and them, can we connect that?
I think we can. You can use everything you just spouted off, like the video games, the you know, being on your cell phone and whatever, the iPads or whatever, you know,
all
you can use all that for a tool, as a tool, the social platform. And as far as them wanting this, I want this, I want that. Anything that's given to you is worth working for. That's what I was talking about, those metaphors earlier.
Right.
Anything that's bestowed or given to you is worth working for.
Well, I don't want to work.
Well, you
got damn adults that don't want to work right now, and there's hundreds of jobs.
That's true.
But the catch to that, in some defense, there's men who want to work, but because they have a felony, we're still looking at certain things.
That is true.
So we have jobs, but you can't have a felon, which is, you know, whatever. And then you got people who want to work, but there's restrictions. So how do we kind of gear into that? Because, again, these kids, or anybody in general, if they're not in that mindset to work for it, then they're not going to
create the desire.
They're almost gonna cripple themselves.
You can create the desire, as you would with a baby and beans. Beans, they usually they don't like it. They don't like the way it tastes. It's just too healthy for them, I guess, right? So what we do, we sprinkle just a little bit of sugar, alter the taste to where it complements their taste buds, where they desire. They begin to desire it after a while. And when they become of age, instead of sugar, they want salt on it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you kind of have to put a different spin depending on who you're interacting with. Fix it so much so. Be a chef when it comes to instilling hope. You have to season it up. You have to season it to their liking. No, it's not one size fit all.
Right.
If this didn't work, let me try this. Let me try that. You know, we have to be willing first and foremost, without getting so frustrated that we just throw in the towel.
Right.
And keep in mind, we wouldn't want nobody doing that to us.
Right. And I think that's, you know, a good point too. And I find that, being able to connect with so many other businesses and nonprofits, and you recognize how amazing your community really is.
Right.
I got the chance of, again, just network. You realize, like, damn, we all got some talent. We all got some heart here.
Yeah.
It can happen, because I've met amazing people who have amazing people who know amazing people. And so when you start putting yourself in position of meeting those people, a lot of change can happen. And I'm excited for that, because I got a chance to meet you. I got a chance to meet, the people over at Mind Solutions. I met, people with the Know Me Now program.
Right.
Again, good people doing good things. I think that's when we just got to kind of tally band together.
That's right.
Which is what we're trying to do. We're working on some stuff to get these communities to really tap into their talent,
Right.
but to be flexible enough to understand that we have some things that we all can really kind of to work out and to work with.
Right.
So, I mean, there is some upcoming change, and I'm excited for that.
I am extremely excited about it. And even things that we have in the works right now that we're already working on, it's inspiring. It breeds hope.
Right.
Nothing from situation breeds nothing. Something breeds something. So we just need to figure out what we're willing to invest in as a collective, because I see what we're willing to invest in already. But it takes more than just a couple, a sprinkle here, a sprinkle there. And I think that we have the right recipes really to create difference. You have to create the desire in somebody. And if not, we have to starve them out, but with positivity, maybe seclude them while they're in a penitentiary-like setting where their mind is now, they're not on drugs, or, they're not being heavily influenced. They may be in one area, but not in as many areas. I think the reentry should start in there. Even, I think I was sharing this with you, even in a jail-like facility where someone gets taken off the street for a violation and they're there for 15 days. That's a restart button. They are so on the maybe 13th day, a lot of that stuff will be out their system. That's a restart button. I think.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned the penitentiary, like we were talking earlier. There is a system in place. We know that. And I'm not exactly sure. Well, I'm not even going to front. I believe that the system works for certain people.
Of course it does.
And they don't want to see an amount of change, because then they go broke. There's always a bed waiting, but they're always overbooked. I'm not exactly sure how that works. So again, I like to be nosy in a sense when it comes to facts, when it comes to stuff like that, because, when you look at that situation, they don't see it as it's not broken. So what do we need to change it? Everybody's fine. And I actually talked to a lady last night when I was volunteering. We didn't get a chance to really connect. I'm hoping I can, follow with her again. But she used to be a correctional officer for like 20-something years. She ended up retiring. She was down in Santa Monica. And super sweet lady. And again, she, having this conversation about Elevate Him, what we want to do, she was like, that's amazing. It's needed. So everybody follows suits. When I've talked to probation officers, when I've talked to release counselors, they're all on board. But we're in a pandemic, and it restricts me from doing the work. And I'm just afraid that they won't allow certain things to take place, because that's going to create the change that they don't want to see change, because it'll mess up the system that to them is not broken.
They are not in the position to all out refuse change. That is the one thing in life that is consistent. Change.
But is that like legislation change? Do we have to rally up,
we are in the process
thousands of people,
we do.
To the penitentiary and really be that? Or can it be simply like, a couple people at a time start to create the noise, and it can, again, with these, kind of going back to the suicide a little bit, with that taking place, we're in a pandemic, and I know that the suicide numbers are actually 2 years back. They don't have enough calculation to calculate it every single year. Right. It seems like it's always 2 years prior, right? Because it hasn't caught up. So we've been in a pandemic for what, 2 years now?
2 years.
Okay. This is going to be big news or big numbers moving forward because we are escalating those numbers due to the pandemic, the isolation, yeah. And so it's like, don't you think the government would be like, you know what? We can do certain things, but we have to have empathy. We have to have understanding that people are not going to be okay in their minds and their emotional states, that we are going to actually push them to the edge, which is happening. Mm-hmm. They're okay with just having some more recovery things in the street and saying it's okay to do drugs.
Right.
It's so weird to me. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of ass backwards. It's like, let's do what we can in the pandemic to stay safe, but let's figure out a way to have dialogue, to get connected, to have groups again, to still function with the things that we're helping people. It takes 6 months to get a counseling appointment now. That's going to be 6 months too long before somebody jumps off a bridge.
It could be.
That's messy to me.
It could be. But the difference between a lot of people and us, and I know this because I've watched you work, there are some people that just talk. There are some people that are shy, are shy of wanting to do this, and their action is a louder voice. And I think that people that are passion-driven, there's a few still embedded in the judicial system that are passion-driven enough to help produce change. I've had many of individuals that are grounded and seated in some positions of power that are actively engaged in fighting to create a difference.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing that as I'm generating my business through, businesses and other people in the community. I can vouch for that. Right. I've met some really amazing people of a leadership level, in power, and they really have the compassion. Right. They really have the heart. They really have the passion and desire to create that change. And so they're using their platform to create that positivity like you're talking about. It's difficult when you have these platforms that people are using it for money or for other glorifications that are really throwing things backwards.
Well, that was my next topic of discussion or entering with that. There are some that are passion driven and there are some that are, greedy. They're greed driven, capitalists, things of that nature. The cool thing about it is that of what you have no control over. I don't focus on that. I focus on the implicit parts where maybe it could swing this way or that way.
Optimism, right? We got to stay optimistic.
Right. But there, in the here and now times, we do have a variety of different platforms where we could use as far as social media to kind of reel people in and start taking a look at things like this to reverse the ideology that was planted a long time ago. It's time to reverse it, but you can't just talk about it.
How do you get so many hands involved, though, without it getting messy? Because sometimes I feel like for me, and this is just me, and I have to learn as I'm growing through my things, is sometimes we have to delegate enough of what we want to be able to get finished the way that we would like. So with that, it's almost like I have to learn at some point in my position of running this business, by myself, I got to start handing things off. Right? Because then somebody else can be responsible and maybe they're better at something than me. So it will help. But it's having that growth and that movement of giving up that kind of control. So when you have a lot of people in the pot, can it get messy? Or how do you pick people enough to align with the mission?
It can get messy, but in leadership, you delegate your tasks to second in charge, third in charge, then third in charge delegates it to fourth, fifth, sixth, and then sixth in charge. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
If you keep it in alignment, it's easier to keep your books straight that way.
And I think just, checking people, not like in a negative way, but just in the sense of
just pulling them up.
If you can't grow with me, you can't go with me. I've said that before. Correct. So you can't just have any and anybody in there. You have to have people that have the same voice and want the same change, because they're going to go just as hard. And then the mission can follow all the way through.
Yeah, you said a mouthful there. You're absolutely right. You have to pick and choose who you want in your army. Yeah. I would pick everybody that has the ability to be generals, and that's why I gravitated towards you. generals, they don't send people torpedo this, on missions. Right. They're head first. If I get shot, you're next. You have to carry this on. You see what I'm saying? Right. Metaphorically speaking.
Right. I know. There you go again.
So if you're gonna spearhead something, I think like I said, there's always somebody watching you, and if they see you how you was as opposed to how you are, and you're having things now, and you're just happier, and you're just a different means of traveling or journeying, they want that. Then they're going to try to emulate. I was talking to you about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
I
need to do some homework.
Just gravitating towards the excellence in individuals, right? There's always somebody doing that. But on the other spectrum, negatively as well, if you see someone that's negatively invested in how they journey throughout their life, that with their lifestyle, people, and they're not getting touched, people are going to go and emulate that as well. So it's whatever they put out there, we got to put more of the positivity out there and have them gravitate towards it. But where there's a will, there's a way.
There is. And I would like to see more people stepping up.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's enough for everybody.
It is.
When I have said and done the show before or had a conversation with somebody, it's like, I this isn't about me.
Right.
I take myself out of the picture at most cost. There's some things that obviously I have to do because it is a part of me. It is my story. It's my testimony.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what it is and what it means has nothing to do with me. It has to do with these numbers. It has to do with these men who don't have stability.
Right.
And yet we have a society or an expectation that everybody be stable. That's not the case. Things change. Shit happens.
Right.
And so we have to be there to catch each other. And I think, again, people have asked me, when are you going to do Elevate Her? And that's come up before.
Right.
And it's not that it's not going to exist at some point. But my goal right now is to recognize and to get this under wraps as much as we can. Because once we get them, the men, the young boys, a little bit more situated, right?
Right.
So they can take ownership, they can take leadership. They're going to treat us women
so they can heal and
better.
Grow. Right.
They can treat the women better. They can start, delegating some of those issues and working with us. And then there should be that partnership, that coexistence, that co-parenting, if that's the case.
Yes.
Whatever. And there's a way to do that. But I always, wanted to make this about what I recognized in my pain. There was a vision. It wasn't my vision. I would have stayed in the airline, bringing in planes, getting big muscles, being out in the weather. Yeah. This wasn't my vision. It was a given vision from God, and I'm just gonna hands down say it. That's what it is. This is my mission, and it was weird because when we had talked to him before, I'm like, why hasn't this been here before?
Right.
Why is Elevate Him just so cool? I don't want it to be trendy. And that's not what I'm about. I want it to be knowledge. I wanted it to be strength. I want it to be change. I want it to be impact. Like, let's start using some big words for some big things.
Right.
And, I'm trying to make it fun and flashy and all that stuff because, like you said, we got to kind of pull in what some trends are. But I will never lower my standards to do anything completely outside of
just for money.
For money, attention, none of that. You got me messed up. So gearing the situation and trying to help with the problem. We can't fix everybody. I'm not God.
Can't fix anybody, but what you could do is give them
a little bit of a runway, a little bit of a guidance path.
Yes.
And then I think it can make some big changes. And again, we have an issue here right now in Portland. It's all over the news. I know that they were talking about beds. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. And I don't watch TV, so a lot of my stuff is bits and pieces. I probably should get more into that so I can really have maybe some more conversations, but having like men like you on here being able to lighten the subject and be like, okay, so if we know what to do, when can we start?
Exactly. And when
do we start? It's like a job, right? It's a job. We just went to a job interview. This is the interview. When do I start? Right? That's that simple, people. We got to know when to start. and how to come together and make that happen. So
consistency is important too.
Right. Is there anything, because we can talk about short-term and long-term type goals. Is there anything that you can kind of place right now where we can start?
Yeah, of course. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I got ideas mulling
We
around
start going
my
into
head.
schools and be like, hey, you, come here. You know, like, I mean, how do we do that?
Well, first and foremost, we've already waged war on, addiction. They actually have a school, and I'm just going to put this out here just because, I think it's an awesome ordeal that they got going on. Harmony Academy. A guy reached out to me that is over the program. I would just say Jeremy, and you can find out what his last name is later. But it's a high school that centers around children that are dealing and struggling with addiction. I've never heard of that until now. That's what it's all about. They say it's harder to change, the dog rather than the pup. So let's start when they're young.
Right.
So, but
It's a good avenue.
we have to. That's a awesome avenue. I think if we invest in what we know will work, not what we assume may work, and that comes from listening to the children.
Right. Well, how soon can we get into places like that? Because I firmly believe, had this pandemic not happened, and I went with my mission, still steady, I think I would be way further, right? Because my restrictions would not be about social distancing or can't get in facilities or you got to be vaxxed or you have to have a negative that. Like, I feel like it would have went way further. Maybe that's a good thing because
It is.
maybe God's like, hey, I got you right here where I want you. Yeah. I will get you there. But right now we need to be here.
Right.
And I think being in the moments of things is very important, just like what we want to do down the road. It's all relevant. It's all important.
Short term, long term.
Right. So when we start to look at some kind of restrictions, is it possible to start getting volunteers or people who might hear this podcast, maybe people that I know, community, we start bringing these, things to the table when we have these, group meetings with other businesses, getting volunteers to go into a school as a group?
Of course it's possible, and I think it'd probably be pertinent to do so. Right now, the field for mentorship, there's a high demand for it. And we have individuals that can train you free of charge. If you have 2 years clean, those of you that don't, we can work on that with you.
Right.
And kind of delegate, services to all of our partnering agencies if we don't provide those specific services for you to get you ready. It's about taking the time just to delegate this over here and provide your own time services, and you got to be consistent with it. I think we can produce change.
Right.
Be part of the production of change.
I wonder if I need to start another nonprofit. I'm going to have like 10 by the end of the year.
I'm actually in the process of
it.
And we'll talk more about that too,
right.
Because I really want to make a difference. I remember when I was in that penitentiary setting, 6x9 cell, I was praying over and over. It was an ongoing, repetitive prayer. God, if you grant me my freedom, because I was initially given 33 years, 27-year minimum. If you grant me my freedom, I will work for you and I can rest when I die. I don't want to shorten that,
Right,
you
no.
know what I mean?
But you are sacrificing, you're giving up, and you're changing enough to follow.
That is correct.
What your purpose is now.
Every great teacher that I've crossed paths with, even you, they're great. They're awesome students. They're even more better at learning than they are teaching. Not to take away from it, because you teach a lot of people. But what I mean by that is so they can continue teaching without fail. They're not complacent. And I think that's where a lot of us go wrong. We become complacent. Oh, we know enough, or
I'm good.
We've done enough, or you don't. You don't.
You have to keep evolving. When I had just heard something the other day, and it cracked me up because I've thought of this before. And sometimes, I do talk a lot, but sometimes I don't voice everything, right? And maybe that's a good thing, I shouldn't say everything. But I'm pretty filtered to a point of just respect. But, you know, when it comes to like being super real, super raw, you know, I feel like people can come and talk to me about any and everything. I don't even know how to judge somebody.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it doesn't even cross my mind. I have had people die that I've kept their secrets. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's just the, you know, the loyalty to myself of just being real and being authentic. But, you know, life doesn't have a manual people think.
Right.
We do, though.
Right.
It's a big book. Big book. You know, big book.
Yeah.
Leather, maybe got a little string on it. A lot of thin papers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And it has it all in there. And I'm not going to go preachy because I don't, you know, like to do that. But in my, you know, journey of giving up and saying, God, work through me, show me, give me my purpose, and not only that, prepare me for what I can do. Because the sky is the limit and he can do anything. And so I just feel like if people really even tapped into a little bit of just finding out their purpose, getting plugged into the world's best manual. We all have one for the car. If your blinker ain't working, what bulb do I use? What kind of oil do I put in the oil change? Like we have car manuals.
There you go with your metaphors.
I know, right? I'm learning.
Yeah.
But, you know, those are just things that we kind of take for granted. But why don't we instill it in ourselves? What are our manuals?
How long did it take you to get to that point?
Oh, man. You know, I've been feeling it for a long time, but I think
What's a long time? I'm asking for a reason now.
You know, it's been a couple years. It's been a couple years. And I'm saying that lightly because I have always been spiritual. I've always been a follower. I've always believed in God. I've always believed that, you know, there was times where I dodged so much stuff, but I knew it wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? I knew it wasn't me.
Right.
So, but I think what kind of came more, you know, true to me is when I gave up. And I didn't give up on life. I didn't give up on myself. I'm just saying I gave up in the sense of thinking I can do it without him. There's a difference.
There's a big
when
difference.
you're running your life for you and you're doing all these things, why isn't this working? Why isn't this happening? I tell you now, I have more money in the bank than I did when I was married with 2 incomes. And it wasn't because he didn't know how to budget.
Well, I'm glad I need some help.
But I'm just saying there's things that I've taken upon myself to release that control and let flow happen, to let God work through me. And it created this sense of confidence. I've never talked like this before.
What got you to that point is what I'm getting at. So let's just do math.
Do you really want this?
Yeah. Let's just do the math real quick. Was it 10 years ago? Was it less than that?
I can't specifically put a point on it.
Okay. Well, did you just use guesstimation? Because I want to point something out to you.
I've always been unique. That's a good word. Very unique.
I'm not sure it doesn't.
We'll go with it.
Okay.
But I've always just been really real. I've always just, I don't have judgment issues for anybody. I've always just been very transparent. And I think that that's gotten me into some troubles, right? Especially with relationships, because I was so naive. I was just like, oh my God, I just want to be loved. And I didn't have a lot of confidence. I didn't really value myself. I always went off of how somebody else valued me. And then when they didn't value me, I didn't value me. So I would say if I could give some type of highlight, and I don't really share, I kind of shared a little bit about my thing, and this might be the night to do it. I don't know. I'm kind of feeling compelled right now because you're kind of opening a little something right now. I don't know what you're doing, but you're opening a little something right now. Yeah. And it might be good for the females because I feel like I talked about so many men things and I talk about, you know, men's health and men's stuff, which is great. But speaking on having to be a leader and really having to kind of have this, you know, conversation now. I might make this real quick because I don't want to get emotional. However, I was in a relationship about 3 years ago. Okay. And, you know, bells, whistles, everything was cool. And And I had a lot of stuff going for myself. At this time, I had, a makeup business studio. I was doing makeup. I, had the kids at home. I had a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, 2 cars. Like, I was doing okay. And met somebody online. And I don't know if that played a factor, but anyway, I met somebody online. And, again, everything was great. It felt like it was the fit. And there was a ring. There was, plans. There was, I'm not that guy. It was all these things, these bells and whistles. And I moved, right? I think that was a really good leap of faith in the relationship. It was showing that I trusted him. And I sold everything. My kids wanted to stay for the summer. And so I was like, all right, cool. And so we went there. I got, acclimated in there. I was working for American Airlines down there. And then the shift, now you're seeing somebody in their atmosphere. I had met some friends, but I didn't really get to meet everybody. And I'm new, so I don't know where anything's at. So we had each other on maps, which wasn't like a weird thing. I just think because if I got lost, he'd be able to say, all right, you're here. Right. But I had a weird feeling one day, and I was like, well, I'm going to just kind of tap into maps and see where he's at. Uh-oh. And he went to like 3 different spots and then some, apartment complex. And when I had called him and said, hey, you good? You on your way home? Kind of got the runaround. Well, he turned off maps because I went back to check it, if he's on his way home. He turned it off. And I was like, that's really strange. So then he turned it back on when he got into the driveway. Good. And again, this kind of happened here and there. So long story short, I brought it to him because he said, hey, I'm not that guy. Woo, woo, woo. If it bothers you, it bothers me. We'll change it, la, la, la. Right. So I bring it to his attention, and turns out, if you're going to question me, you got to go. I'm like, go where? Right. The hell? You need something at the store right now? Like, what's going on? No, you need to go all the way out. And I was crushed. Like, I had no place to go.
Pivoting point, huh?
Yeah. So at that point, this is what I had in the front seat of a very, very small U-Haul, going back to Portland, Oregon with no place to live. I had gotten rid of everything. I didn't even have silverware. Okay. Cruising back up I-5, I had my Bible and the dog in the front seat. And I cried all the way home, which I didn't even have a home. Right. I literally had to stop at certain places to be able to send over like a pay stub or information so I could get a place. The only thing that I can find was online. I never got to step foot. I don't know if this place got cockroaches, if it's got mold. Right. I can only see what they have online. I have never been foot in this place. Right. So I'm applying for stuff. I'm trying to get my jobs back. I'm all doing this on the road. I'm sleeping on I-5 on one of those big trucking, truck stop rest areas. Right. And I pulled out my Bible. It's like right there next to me. And I just was so broken. So broken. And the only thing that came to mind is you're going to have to heal. You are going to have to fight this and heal. Because this right here could hurt you permanently. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that for myself. I had been through stuff. I got to go through this process. So I get this townhouse, right? I get back home. And I got the job back at Alaska, or Horizon at the time. I didn't even tell my kids. And I was showing up for the first day of school. I showed up to homecoming. I was out buying them stuff for school. Birthday party, showed up on my son's birthday. Like, they had no idea. They're like, why are you driving? I'm like, well, standby is a bitch. I can't always get on. But I felt bad for lying. But I was so hurt. I was so, not embarrassed, but I was just so broken. So finally 5 months go by, and the only people that knew were the people that I worked with at the airport. They were like, hey, didn't you? And I was like, let's just work. I don't got time for this. So long story short, what I'm saying is I think that was that moment where if I didn't start the healing process, this right here wouldn't exist. Because I was still going through the loss of my brother. That's never going to go away. Right. But I wasn't going to start hating every single man. Right. I wasn't going to allow that hurt to continue to hurt me, because he hurt me. But if I allowed it to continue, that was me doing the damage.
That is correct.
So I had to take responsibility. And so when I started to look at that, I was like, damn, I really should have seen some stuff before I moved. Mm-hmm. I should have really slowed my roll, did not research or investigation by any means, because, men are men. I don't need to put pressure on anybody. Right. I should have let it be flow. I should have let it be natural. And I feel like there's maybe some spots where I was like, hey, I'm ready. I love you, and pushing it. And he was just doing the right thing, but he wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. So there could have been some time where I would have saved myself. I did not take responsibility in that. And that's huge. So not only did I take responsibility, then I healed, and then I connected with the best thing that I knew, and that was God. And that's where my whole, my whole mental shifted.
Why do you think I asked? Why do you think I asked?
I don't know, because maybe you're just nosy. I don't know. This is brought up now, and I've never spoke about this publicly.
Kind of like that, too. I'm not that nosy, but I am. Now, but the reason why I asked is to kind of paint a portrait, because paint the picture, make it clear. You know those words. Paint a portrait of what could or couldn't, or why something isn't happening with our youth. They haven't came to a head, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They haven't got to that all-time low, or recognize that they have, because they have something to gravitate towards. Although it's negative, it's just a whole sea of negative. So they one of their homeboys gets shot, it's still not their all-time low.
Right.
They need to be backed into circumstance that push them only one way. And if they on their back, that's only up.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and definitely there's accountability, responsibility, and growth, right? That's the change. And so we got really long tonight on this show, and I appreciate you guys for still staying tapped in. If you are, we're going to wrap it up, though. We do have some time coming up. We're going to get back into it. We got some other conversations for sure, because we know that we can talk. Obviously, we flow real well. So you get Sherry up in this mix, it's going to be all good. So
I won't get a word in.
I know, right? So, at this point, we really appreciate you guys being here and listening, and we'll come back and carry this one on. And thank you guys again. Love, peace. Thank you.
Hey, what's up? It's Nickole Brewster, also known as Coco. Thank you for tapping into the Elevate Him podcast. Until next time.